Welcome everybody to the November extraordinary meeting of Hull Parish Council. Before we start, I'll just run through the procedure in case there's a fire. There's a fire exit there and one at the front, and we'll gather on the far side of the car park just to be accountable. So before we start the main meeting, we've got 10 minutes set aside to receive table reports from elected members of Lincolnshire County Council and South Holland District Council.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Poll?
Previously, the question has been raised about the digital notice board, to which the clerk has responded by saying it's been agreed by Lal.
Yes.
The September meeting was cancelled due to you can't have a clear day on a day of mourning. Could the clerk confirm, deny whether Lal was informed that the digital notice board switches off at 10 p.m, so it doesn't advertise the agenda for a full 24 hours?
So I believe, Mr. Poll, that the item you're referring to is in John's Clark's report. We don't actually have an open forum at this meeting because it's an extraordinary meeting. So if we're able to continue, if you would like to discuss it with John, then you can do that via email if that's okay.
If the meetings haven't been advertised for 3 clear days, then they're not legal meetings, and we're looking at 6 months to mark.
Again, it will be explained in the clerk's report, and if you require any further information, we can provide that to you via email.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, do we have any table reports from Lincolnshire County Council and South Holland District Council?
No, but we have apologies from County Councillor Tracy Carter.
Okay, thank you. So I will now state standing orders and we'll commence with the first agenda item, which is 89, apologies for absence.
I've received apologies from councillors Peter Howden, Stephen Johnson and Safia Hussain, which have been accepted.
And then I would just like to propose that we reorder the agenda to move 92C to the next agenda item, just so that we can co-opt the councillors a little bit sooner. Everybody is in agreement. Do I have a second? All those in favour? Okay, agenda item 92C, to resolve to agree to co-opt to the council those who have submitted papers. Do you just want to read?
So we've received applications to join the council from 2 people. One is not here tonight. I don't know what we want to do about that. It was Chaz Simpson and Clive Turner, who sat over there.
So, as we normally do, Clive, would you like to just introduce yourself to the council and members of the public?
Certainly. Yes, good evening. My name is Clive Turner. I've lived in the Whole Beach Bank for some 22 years. And career-wise, I've been in IT for some 45 years. So I've worked away from the area probably for much of my life, coming back at weekends, but obviously saw the vacancy recently on Spotted Whole Beach in the Parish Council, and I thought, well, I've lived here long enough, so I thought I'd like to take a little bit more interest in what's going on, certainly in the community, and contribute in any way I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would like to propose that we've got Clive Turner to the council. Do I have a seconder? All those in favour? Welcome to the council. We'll just go through the page work before we move on. And then,
Just sign there.
and what do members wish to do with the other co-option that we have? Do they want to consider it this meeting, or do they want to defer it given that he's not in attendance?
Defer.
Defer. So do you have a seconder for that? All those in favour? Thank you. Item deferred. so moving on to agenda item 90, declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of interest in accordance with the requirements of the Local Act 2011 and to consider any request for dispensations in respect of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest in agenda items. I believe Jan just has some dispensations to read out.
I've issued dispensations to Councillor Isabel Hutchinson regarding cemetery fees, Councillor Sophie Hutchinson regarding cemetery fees, Councillor Murfitt regarding cemetery fees, and Councillor Turner for setting a precept.
Okay. I just need to declare a pecuniary interest in item 93C, which is the cemetery fees.
I also need to declare a pecuniary interest in item 93C.
Yep. Right.
Pecuniary interest in the same one?
Pecuniary interest in 92A, 93E, and 97B added.
Okay, agenda item 91 minutes. To resolve to approve as a correct record the notes of the meeting of the council held on the 10th of October 2022 and the 1st of November 2022 and to authorise the chair to sign the official minutes. Do we have a proposal?
I've got just a quick question before you do. Why the cemetery fees? What's happened? You never had this
Isabel, do you
before.
want to just explain?
Because if you have a plot, if you have an exclusive right of burial, then that is a pecuniary interest, because if we raise the cemetery fees or decide not to raise the cemetery fees, then it's going to impact on us.
Okay,
Directly.
so this is a new thing.
Yeah, it's a new thing. We've just clarified it with the internal auditor to make sure, because we haven't done it previously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
That's
would be
why
classed
it's
as, because it's land that you lease technically.
Madam Chairman, have you got yourself a plot already?
Well, that's a personal situation.
Oh, that's so sweet. You're going to leave Whole Beach.
Thank you.
So do we have a proposer for the minutes? Seconder? All those in favour? Thank you. Right, I'll just sign away. Okay. Agenda item 92, clerk support, and item A is to receive a report from the clerk.
Okay, so I refer to the letter of supporting documentation that was handed to Stephen at the last meeting by the parishioner complaining about advertising the agendas on the digital notice board. As you can see, got legislation here. The government did not say no to this. In fact, they referred him to the legislation, which is very clear in that the notice should be in a conspicuous place. We all interpret words differently, however, this is Lout's response as of the day after the meeting. The legislation simply states that the notice must be posted in a conspicuous place in the parish. Coming from the 1972 Act, it does not refer to digital notice boards as they were not in existence. Therefore, it must come down to interpretation. The legal requirement is that it's displayed 3 clear days in advance of the meeting, and the agenda does not have to be displayed, it is simply the notice. If the council also displays their notice and agenda on a website, they are covering both bases. It would take case law to determine the use of digital notice boards, but until that time we can only interpret the law, and in my opinion, as long as the notice is displayed in a conspicuous place, It does not matter whether it is a wooden notice board or a digital one. This is me speaking again now, we only need to display the summons in a conspicuous place in the parish, not in every ward like we aim to do. Also, I should point out that we always publish our full agendas and supporting documents on our website and digital notice board. Please find below what we are legally bound to post in a conspicuous place. So what we have to post is notice is hereby given and members are summoned to attend a meeting of Holbeach Parish Council to be held at the Methodist Hall, Albert Street, Holbeach on Monday the 10th of October 2022 at 18:45. That's what we do. With regard to the comments made by the gentleman regarding his allotment rent, following the comments made at the last full council meeting regarding the allotment rent, the original agreement from 2013 did state rent in advance. However, 2 previous clerks before me had charged the rent in arrears. I have sent a letter to the gentleman concerned along with previous invoices and asked why this was not raised before. The legislation is the Allotments Act 1950 section 10, which states if the yearly rent exceeds 25 shillings, that's £1.25, then it's not permissible to provide for more than 1/4's rent to be payable in advance. Although it's not legally compliant, if both the tenant and the allotment authority make an agreement at the beginning, the rent may be payable in advance. If the gentleman wishes to pay in advance, then he would need to have confirmation, we would need to have confirmation from him, and the rent would be more next year as a precedent has already been set with paying in arrears. That has moved on since this was done. The gentleman has been in with a letter. We have received an email regarding the police and crime annual survey, which has been forwarded to members. I will complete this on behalf of the council if everyone is happy for me to do that. Members have been forwarded an email from the Ulster Dowsing Offshore Wind Group, who have asked you to elect a representative to attend their meeting at Fosdyke Village Hall on the 1st of December. The email was received after the agenda was set. Grass cutting. Following on from the agreement made at the meeting on the 1st of November, we have tried to obtain information required from the first choice tenderer. This has been a long process, and despite many calls and emails, we have still not received the answer to all our questions, although the contractor has increased their prices by 8%. We have been able to ascertain that they are like-for-like quotes, which could leave the council vulnerable to further price increases, and therefore council's decision to go with the next cheapest has applied. I took professional advice from our internal auditor, and as they cannot hold their original price, their tender becomes null and void. This procedure has been confirmed by our internal auditor. On that audit, the interim comments came in today from the auditor saying that the documents provided by us both are very detailed and thorough. That's the last report. Do you want me to move on to vacancies, please? So we have 2 vacancies on Herne, but now 1 because Clive's joined us. So we've got 1 for Herne, 1 for Drove, and 5 for Town Ward. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Yes.
2 points of writing in that. Here, our good friend Commissioner Mr. Cole has an issue with this visit of 3 days, and the digital notice board shutting down at 10 o'clock. Therefore, I think that's something that we can discuss, first and foremost. And secondly, with regard to the whole grass cutting contract, the whole thing absolutely stinks. And there's certainly issues of maladministration, possibly even malfeasance. Therefore, I suggest we resolve this at the closed session.
So, in terms of your first point, Tim, obviously we can liaise with Mr. Pole if he would require any more information. Jan has received advice from LARC already and detailed that in our clerk's report. So we can ask them about the timings to try and clarify any further, but really it is down to interpretation.
The problem there is that if that's the case, and he is actually correct, I'm not saying he's maybe wrong, it does effectively make that meeting is illegal.
Yes, but it does say displayed.
Yes,
it says displayed in a conspicuous place. There's no reference to time periods or anything like that because, like,
it's 3 days.
it's in the 1970s. There wasn't digital notice boards back
Yes,
then.
but 3 days is how many hours? 72 hours?
So we can look into that. It's not an agenda item for this meeting, so it can't be discussed.
Mhm.
We can look into that with Lau, ask them the question, and then we can come back at the next meeting and come back to Mr. Pole via email if that's what he wishes to do. In terms of the other point with grass cutting, you've alleged there's maladministration, etc.
It
going
seems to
on.
me there is.
Yes, well, obviously that is a very serious allegation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I make it without reservation.
Yes, so in terms of that, we have spoken to the internal auditor with the whole process, and Jan's been receiving advice on that, and they have confirmed the correct procedure to follow, which we have followed. That is the whole point of receiving an internal and an external audit. Every minute detail of what we do is gone through thoroughly by an internal and external auditor.
So putting the tender out to only 4 contractors on an 11-day period, you think that is going to fit the requirement for us as a council to try and save money for the parishioners?
The grass cutting contract didn't go out for an 11-day period, Tim.
Well, I thought that was the case. Have I got it wrong?
Yes, yes.
Oh, if that's the case, then I apologise.
But
I understood that they'd gone out for an 11-day period and it only been sent to a few contractors. Given there must be, what, about 60 or 70 contractors within the area of here to be able to do these jobs for us, while we issue out our tenders out to only a preferred number of contractors.
it's not issued out to the preferred number of contractors.
What was it for?
It's issued out to the contractors that we are aware of, and if you're aware of 60 or 70 grass cutting contractors in the area, then please, give those
Would it be a
details
good
to us,
idea
because
perhaps to go put these tenders out to put them out to the public rather than on the
They are.
website?
they're
Where are
published
they
on the
published? Where are
website.
they advertised?
They're published on the website, Tim.
But yeah, the website. I mean, this is back to the Joe's Guide of the Galaxy again. You kind of put it on planet view one parsec away. You've got to put it out to the public. There's a whole. We've actually got here present a member of the press who could have put it in her newspaper with a much more wider coverage. You can't put things on the website and expect people to find their way in. Half the time it doesn't work on the phone anyway. So how are you going to get all these other contractors even finding out about this? We need to put it out as widely as possible to get the best possible price, to reduce the price for our parishioners. And at the moment, we can't be doing contracts to preferred individuals as it seems to be at the moment. We should be open and transparent to our public. It's their money we're spending here.
Yes, it is, Tim. But we're not sending it out to preferred individuals. We research, the same as we've done all the time you have been on this council, we research all of the contractors in the area.
So why do you send it out to 4?
That's only 4 responses, what was received.
Yeah, there's only 4 responses that were received. That doesn't mean that's necessarily all the ones that we always try to send out to.
How many did you, again, Madam Chairman, how many did you send it out to then?
In that sense, we did send it out to 4, but
So you
that's...
only sent it out to 4? And these
But
responses-
so what other contractors, Tim, what other contractors did you find? to
What
send
are the
it to?
contractors?
Point of order, this is not an agenda item. We have had a report. If you wish to make it an agenda item for the next meeting, then please do so, Tim. But it is not an agenda item and it needs to be in closed session if we're going to be discussing it at all. So let's move on with the agenda, please.
The only thing I will raise at this point is I have put forward 8 agenda items and only one of them has appeared on the agenda.
And I believe that has been discussed with you in detail.
It has been discussed, but it
and
hasn't. It hasn't been discussed in a way that a response could go forward to be able to come onto this agenda. Just want to make that noted.
Okay, so you don't feel satisfied with the response you've received?
No.
Okay, well, we can discuss that with you
No
after the
problem.
meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the Open Spaces Committee, agenda item 93A is to receive a report from the chair of the committee. I'll hand over to Mark.
Okay, so Councillor Park, an in-depth discussion about the next actions, about slide arrangements. That was not what was ordered, and as the solutions offered by the company are not acceptable in relation to what we want to be delivered in the interest of the public. Therefore, the suggestion was tabled, as it will come up later in, to request its removal. Following the maintenance of the Bowls Club, soon coming back to under HPC, and the bespoke needs, it was suggested that a tender for the maintenance be investigated. Cemeteries. Increase in cemetery fees were debated and have been recommended to full council. Concerns were raised from parishioners on overhanging trees and dogs being let off the lead. The winter schedule of works is underway to address the tree and hedge work. Allotments. Following the unoccupied allotments being reworked and re-let, the waiting list has been exhausted. Allotment re-inspections will be carried out on the 24th of November. It was confirmed how allotment rents have been historically charged in arrears. As current legislation states, applications for fruit trees, sheds and the greenhouse were heard. Churchyard. It was discussed to replant the war memorial in preparation for the upcoming remembrance parades, and it was debated to, as far as possible, use sustainable planting. Also want to add a sort of note in here. Thank you very much, Councillor Flood, for sorting that. Much appreciated. Tree work. The tenders were deferred to the next full council meeting, which, as it happened, went on to the extraordinary meeting on the 1st, at which point sealed tree work tenders were discussed in the extraordinary meeting. 6 weeks' notice has been sourced from SHDC for the conservation area work. Final thing, budgets for 2023-24. 2023-24 budgets were discussed and debated and recommended to the Finance Committee at £67,072. Following debate, it was requested to put forward two budgets, one with projects included and one without. The budget without projects is £47,572 due to a breakdown on project costs of Carts Park Youth Area being £8,000, seating and inclusive trampoline being £6,500, and a figure of £5,000 for Netherfields. And to put a bit more on that one, that would be for walking football and a smaller pitch and a new gated area. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Councillor Murphy, we've increased the budget by £2,000, and that's because we found out last week that the problem we have with the tennis court is fungal growth coming up from tree roots, which would need repairing, but the gentleman from the tennis court company said it does need maintenance every 2 to 3 years. He said probably £2,000 in the first year, £1,500 in the second year. He has said if we do the repairs ourselves, which look quite easy to do from the way he explained to us, that he will come back when he's in the area and paint the repairs so that it matches colour-wise. I just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
Do you want me to go through this? We'll do this a bit later.
we'll do that bit during the budgeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So agenda item B, to resolve to agree that to ask the company that installed the slide to remove it as it is not fit for purpose.
Yeah, I think the discussion was had in relation to the additions that they wanted to make at the top of the slide. Still doesn't make it meet with the requirements of what we asked for initially, and the recommendation is that we ask them to remove it in full and look to source a slide from somewhere else in as short a time as possible, because the funding for that came via a grant, and therefore it needs to be paid within, or needs to be sorted within this year. So the table motion is to ask the slide to remove it.
Do we have a second of that? Rick, all those in favour? Thank you. Agenda item C, to resolve to agree the recommendation of the committee to increase the cemetery fees from 1st of April 2023.
Okay. The cemetery fees was discussed at open spaces. I believe Councillor Flood has raised why this dispensations is an issue now, I think, sparked from that meeting, and the fact that I raised concerns about increasing cemetery fees this year, on top of them being increased last year at the same as well. So a second year increase, and the fact that I tabled and mentioned the fact that people outside of the parish had sort of paid double for the fees and such like. So the resolution went forward as a vote 3-1, and so we're recommending the increase in the cemetery fees to full council. But I still do maintain my point that that I don't personally feel that the fees should be increased at this point, but that's what we put forward to recommend to the council, that they are increased.
So the recommendation from Open Spaces is that the fees increase, which are pretty much in line with other parishes in the area, like Long Sutton. Do we have a proposer and seconder for the increase in cemetery fees? The document is on the drive, which will then be published to the website after meeting, but it's not for public view during meeting. Yeah, Rick, seconder? All those in favour?
They can't. Beginning interest.
We've got a dispensation
Yeah.
to be able to vote and discuss it. Yeah. All those in favour?
Sorry, could you ask show of hands again? Sorry.
In favour?
You're in favour?
Mark's not in favour.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All those against?
We don't do those, okay.
Unless you want your vote recorded against.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Three.
those things. Okay. Agenda item D, to resolve to agree to purchase new wildlife watering troughs.
Again, this is something that was put on the agenda in relation to the wildlife that we've got in primarily Park Cemetery, and it was just to purchase small watering troughs, similar to tomato bag holders, if you like, that can hold water for the squirrels, hedgehogs and such like that we have. So I put some quotes into there, so the proposal is that we go ahead and purchase these with the cheapest rate.
So, how many troughs are you roughly looking at purchasing?
I think the one on there was, I think it was 4 or 6.
We only need 4. Yeah, we don't need many at all.
Okay.
The one which, the large one which, sorry,
Yeah.
we're being not the one we have at the moment is broken, and that's why it's propped up on bricks. So it's not safe anyway, and it stops water everywhere. So to have something a bit more nicer, and it will serve the purpose. So you only need 1 or 2 in strategic areas, and plus it takes the overflow from the tap as well. So it does save water.
So in terms of the costings that have been put into the drive, we've got one which is 100 by 55 centimetres for £31.99, and one which is 60 by 60 for £23.99. So which one are we proposing to go with?
Well, that's on Councillor Flood's quote
Yeah.
there. There was also another one that I put in, which was for 5 of them, which came out cheaper than both of those, I believe.
Okay.
So I would suggest we go for the 5 one, and we've got some surplus.
Propose a seconder, please?
Can I ask a question? I just wondered whose responsibility it is to clean and top up the water, that's all.
When people are walking through there, myself does it, other people do it, and people when they're tending the graves, they put a bit of water in there, because it's right next to the watering can station.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Everyone knows what it's there for, who tends that area, well, not technically. But we do have quite a lot of wildlife within that area.
Yeah, that's good, it's a great idea, but
It's very
you don't want to end up poisoning.
No.
Mark?
I think just to sort of like finish that one off as well, if it's checked on a regular basis, also by our ground staff, so the Parks and Cemeteries team check on that as well.
Okay, any more questions, or are we ready to go to a vote? Propose, seconder, all in favour? Thank you. Agenda item E, to resolve to agree when to stop grass cutting for the season.
I think, well, go on. I think in relation to that, obviously, we're later currently discussing this than we would like to have been sort of like quite at least a week. But I think the current climate, I think we should stop cutting ASAP with immediate effect. But I don't know whether you want to.
Yeah, Rachel.
Sorry, is that all grass cutting, or just what we tender grass cutting, or the whole
This
lot?
is specifically for instructing the contractor.
Fantastic.
The other bit can be discussed in your open spaces meeting for a work session.
Right, won't do Sean this one.
Anybody else want to comment? Any suggestions? Yes.
Just for ease, it would be more sensible if we say a date the end of this week, because obviously if it's already scheduled in for this week, then you don't want to be cutting up halfway through the week.
Or the end of the month, basically, if you've already scheduled staffing and bits and pieces. It's longer than we usually do anyway.
So do we want to propose the end of the week or the end of the month? What's the proposal?
I'll propose the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for money wise, it's just because of the weather.
Do we have a seconder? Yeah. All those in favour? Okay. Agenda item 94, Planning, Properties, Emergency Planning and Speeding Committee. To elect interested members to the committee. Do we have anybody who is interested in joining Planning, Properties, Emergency Planning and Speeding? Yeah, fine.
We didn't have that open spaces meeting.
You're on.
Bring us all fair.
According to your terms of reference, you're full. So that's why it's just not on the agenda. If anybody comes off, then of course we'll elect it. So Clive has put himself forward. Do we have a proposer? Secondly, all of those in favour? Thank you.
I'm glad our numbers wasn't written in stone, they were quite.
Agenda item A, to receive a report from the chair of the committee.
At our last meeting, the planning applications were discussed and comments agreed. We were unhappy with one application and wanted to look at it in more detail, so we've added it to the full council agenda to agree a comment. The locations for the SIDS were agreed as Holby St John's and Church Street. Work has started on the chapel roof, and a contractor has been out to look at the windows to give us an estimate for the work required. And Bowls Club lease has now ended, and they have now returned the keys. We will be looking at costings for them and individuals to hire the area ready for the new season. The lease for Holby Bank Football Club is due to expire next May, so it was agreed to contact the Crown to seek their view on any future lease before contacting the club. It was agreed to renew the lease for room 3 in Coomberrow, subject to a small increase in the rent due to the increase in energy costs. It was also agreed to continue with a cleaning contract for Coomberrow.
Thank you. So, agenda item B, to resolve to agree the planning responses. We have an amendment to Western Boundary, an amendment scheme redesign, a scramble bike track approved under another planning application, it's modification of the condition, S73A continuation, a proposed pair of semi-detached dwellings, proposed extension and alterations, amendment to drive amendments, amendment to drawing reference number in relation to an affordable mixed tenure plan, and construction of a food store, which is the Aldi. Do we have any comments on any of those planning applications? Yes, this one.
I would like to make a comment on the food store. Not that I'm against it, but I do think that they need to consider the highway, because where it is, you've got a lot of traffic going up and down there and things connecting into it. And currently there is parking allowed on the opposite side to where the entrance will be, and I think it will cause an absolute nightmare. I do think they need to look at that. So I think we need to put something in the comment regarding that. And also, I'd just like to make a comment, I don't understand how District Council can make a decision on a planning application whereby they are actually going to be benefiting from it because it is their land that they're selling to Aldi. So how can they actually make a decision on that planning application? I do not understand. But that's for another discussion with their authority.
Any other comments on any planning applications? Mark?
Just one thing, on the HO 9078622 amendment to amendment to drawing reference number in relation to the affordable mixed tenure plan. Am I right in suggesting that that's the one that came through where they want to alter the section 106 money in relation to affordable housing?
No, I don't believe that one's on the agenda. I think that will be considered at the next PPS
Certainly,
meeting.
it's the homes one, isn't it?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's the Holwich Meadows side
Yeah.
where they wanted to reduce the
Reduce.
remove.
Any of it.
So any other comments or?
Yeah, sorry, just on the construction of the food store, I just wonder how do we communicate with the local community, and, those individuals, the residents immediately adjacent to that store? Is it the parish responsibility, or is it district that are accountable or responsible?
So the consultation process around all plumbing is district responsibility. They've
Right.
obviously done an extended consultation in relation to the Aldi.
Mm.
They did a exhibition at the Tigers Bar where people could come along. So they've kind of done it in stages. Obviously, if we get residents' views coming into us, we can feed that into our comments. But generally, the consultation process is down to district council to do that.
Will we go out and ask the local residents for comments, through this process, or?
Yes, Rachel.
I know you live in the immediate area around there, all received letters to
Right.
let me know what was happening,
Yep.
when the open forum was going to be, so that they could at least have a chance to put it in. If they couldn't attend, they could email. There's a lot of contact details within
Okay.
the forms that we
It
sent.
was quite a wide area, because we got one as well, we're not
Yeah.
close to it.
They did cover a very big
Yeah,
area.
Yeah, I do believe we've got a comment in on another application from a member of the public, and we use that to consider our response, depending on what the public view is. So,
Do Aldi make a contribution in any way to the town? Or?
they will be negotiating a 106 agreement. Whether that is amended partway through is another matter. But-
Sorry,
Yeah.
that's district.
Yeah, so again, district council negotiate a 106 agreement with the developer in question,
Right.
depending on the size and impact on the development. So it's all negotiated, and that would be published on the planning portal that South London District Council have, so it is available for people to read once it's agreed. Any other comments?
The 106, we can put projects forward as a parish council to apply for this money.
I see.
So that's how it works.
Doesn't it benefit the town?
So the only one that we've got comments for is the construction of a food store. So we generally are in favour. We think it's benefit the town, but there is just the comment about the traffic
Well,
management.
originally that side of the road was to be a cycle path anyway.
Yes, it is a cycle
It
path,
is.
but they're allowed to park in
Right.
it. Exactly.
Well,
So
It's only an advisory cycle lane,
Mm.
because I queried it with Lincoln Gate down to the highways.
do we have a proposer for those comments to go to district? Second, yeah. All those in favour? And the rest are no objection. Okay, so item C, to receive an update on the cemetery chapel roof. Is there anyone you want to update on?
Yeah, okay. I've been down again today to have a look, and they have done about elevation and a half currently with slating. They have battened the other elevation, so I would say probably another 3-4 weeks work potentially. Just depends on the weather and how they go. The issue that we have was around the invoicing. They have sent out some more invoices that they require us to pay. We did agree some at our previous meeting. However, there is a bit of discrepancy around some. They are asking us to pay for scaffolding for the beginning of October. However, they were actually meant to be starting work on the 3rd of October, but they chose not to start work on the 3rd of October, and they pushed it back to middle of October, so therefore I would disagree with paying anything for that. That's their choice.
£600, isn't it?
Yeah. And they also sent in an interim payment invoice, which was for about 12 grand.
10,000.
10,000, which is the norm in that if it's a large contract you would get an interim payment. However, we did ask for a full breakdown as to what that included, and they have not provided us with one. So therefore, I would, again would not be recommended we pay that until we get a full breakdown. But as they're very close to finishing, if they get all their invoicing ready for our December meeting, then we should be able to agree the full payment.
So when you come to the finance bit, the monthly payments of 40,000 for October included those invoices, but although the payments were agreed, I haven't actually made the payments.
It is agenda item 97F, isn't it, to agree or disagree those payments? Okay. Thank you, Pippa. Item D is to resolve to agree to amend the committee's terms of reference from the planning committee to planning, properties, emergency planning and speeding committee. So I believe this was just picked up by the internal auditor when he was going through our website. It states planning committee, but we actually call it the planning, properties, emergency planning and speeding committee, or PPES for short. So do we have a proposer to amend those terms of reference? Yep, second. All those in favour? Thank you. Agenda item E, to resolve to agree the cost of the work to the Cemetery Chapel car parking area. Would you like to explain that?
Okay, so the reason for this is the chapel's trust, when they were in existence, put in full planning application to change the usage of the chapels, and also to, part of that was to have car parking for disabled and also turning lane. Now, we've had discussions with the conservation officer because the planning and the listed building consent is due to run out in January. So therefore, we've either got to start works, which the chapel roof is not part of the works because it's a repair rather than changing the structure. Or we will have to do the whole thing again if we want to do any more further works to the chapel, which we are intending to continue to renovate them. So the sensible thing will be to start something, and his suggestion was if we at least dig out the footings and prepare the ground for a parking bay, then we have started works. And once they've signed it off, then that planning application then stays forever. So that would be the sensible thing to do. We have gone out to a local builder for a price in principle to see what it would be. He has given us a price to do the full parking bay with block paving, so therefore if we did want to remove it or make it bigger or anything, it would be a simple process to take block paving out and redo that. And that was around about 1,800 to do that, the groundworks and everything. If we don't want to go that full route, I'm presuming that he would be more than happy just to dig out foundations and put in the hardcore and leave it like that. So you would be looking at no more than 1,800, but probably less if you chose to go down a lesser route. So it's really as to whether you agree that that is good use of money, because if you lose your planning application, it's going to cost you considerably more to go back and do some more.
Tender process, Madam Chairman. This is £800. It's a figure that's been drawn out of the hat. But no, there's no specification. It's set a specification and put out a tender. Do the job properly.
So according to our financial regulations, Tim, anything above is £500, John?
Yeah.
We have to get 3 quotes. So the idea of this is because it is time sensitive, we're agreeing the spend tonight, and then if we require to get more quotes in order to get best price for parishioners, we can do so in order to get it done before January. But that's the intention of this process.
So
But in terms of a full-blown tender process where you write out a full tender, send it out, etc., that doesn't have to be done for prices this low, according to our financial regulations.
So this is, sorry,
Yes.
so this is to basically get a ballpark figure so that we can agree the budget, and presumably we have the budget available to us before we then take it to the next stage to go out to market. That's what full tender,
Yeah, but to get
then
quotations.
to get proper quotations.
In that case, can I have your assurance that this will be a public, set out to the public, properly, tendered to the public?
Sent out on Facebook.
On Facebook,
Well,
not advertising in a newspaper, anywhere anybody else can find it?
but that would incur cost to the public, Tim, so that would have to be agreed at council if you wanted to advertise.
So I'm talking of procurement policy, which was agreed in April.
The advertising, yes. Yeah. Rachel.
Obviously now I'm quite fond of that area. What do you think of the pudding?
The planning application shows it immediately in front of the bed on the right hand side, as you're coming in from Park Road,
Yeah.
on the right hand side in front of the bed of
Yeah, I know what
flowers
you mean.
currently. So it'll be tucked up there and face towards.
Okay, because obviously my concern is then we're going to have to both the gate.
It's purely, it is there for when you are using it as a facility for, if you are using it for a funeral or whatever further down the line when we actually start using it as an event venue, then it's there for that purposes. It's not there for just the general public to drive in and park the
No,
car.
that's my
That's-
concern.
That is not what it's there for.
I just want to say that we approved the procurement policy in April, and it does say in there the value that we have to go for tenders, which is advised by Her Majesty's Government. At £1,800, we're well lower than we need to be for a tender, so there's no point.
Mark, do you just want to...
Yeah, just two things. Firstly, in relation to it being a cemetery, do we need to apply for faculty in any way, shape or form?
No, that's just the churchyards.
Okay. And secondly, if it's just a matter of digging out the area to get it started, would it not be worth the ground stuff that we've currently got to do that at some point?
We were advised by the Conservation Officer that it would have to be done as a professional job in order to be signed off. So it depends on their timescales for what other work they've got to do, and also the machinery needed, etc., for hiring in and things like that. So it may well be cheaper by the time you hire in to actually get somebody else to do it, especially with the workload at the moment.
Okay.
Sorry, lots of questions. Don't just shut up and take your
That's
time
okay.
if you want to. But I just wondered whether you had the parish has a preferred list of suppliers. So, maybe you set your criteria on what your builders are. So, you've gone out to market, you found 5 or 10 or whatever it is.
The policy is that we try to spend locally where possible.
Absolutely agree with that. But, you can set your criteria on health and safety, on speed, on I don't know, all those sorts of things. And then, perhaps then you won't get spurious requests or quotations coming through. You've got your trusted partners, if you like, for the community. That was all.
We don't have a formal preferred list of suppliers, but generally we do look at other work they've done for the parish previously, again, making sure they're local to keep the business local, and we go for reputable companies. So that's one reason why we do go out directly rather than just advertising it and opening it out to everybody, because you do tend to get a lot of people coming back and some strange comments on Facebook. Any other questions? No? Do we have a proposal then that we're capping the spend at approximately 1,800? Is that the recommendation?
Well, that's the price that has been an estimate, so it depends on what people are prepared and want to spend on it.
When did you say the plan run out?
January.
So it's very tight.
So once the spend has been agreed, we will have to go through the process and get best price, maybe outside of a full council meeting, but during committee meetings.
Isn't it assess the value for money of using their own staff to do it?
Well, that
Within
could,
the chairman of the
that could be
Spaces.
reviewed at the work scheduling part of the open spaces meeting.
It obviously would be very
if the
done
committee
in-house,
decides.
wouldn't it, at the end of the day?
Well, again, that needs to be reviewed at the work scheduling part of the open spaces meeting. If they decide to instruct the staff, that is down to the open spaces committee.
Fair enough.
And that's happening before the next planning meeting. So.
Oh, good.
Wasn't there anything against the staff hiring equipment anyway?
There is problems there, yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
there's,
that's
there's,
out of the question anyway, isn't it?
there's problems with the insurance regarding hiring equipment at the moment. So again, that would have to be looked at. If the Open Spaces Committee want to look at that and decide to instruct staff, then that would be part of the work schedule at their meeting. But as a backup, if they don't want to do that, obviously we would need to be agreeing a spend in order to proceed fairly swiftly with this matter. Yes, Mark?
Just on the tack on to that point, we won't be able to discuss it at the next Open Spaces meeting because the agenda's already been set and there's no way of adding things onto an agenda that's already been set. So it won't be able to be discussed. It'll be discussed at the next planning meeting before it gets to the Open Spaces.
No, if you want to discuss it to set it as part of your work schedule, which is on the agenda, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah, but you can't discuss that in relation to additional spend in relation to getting planting. That won't be part because we won't be allowed to do it because it's not a tabled agenda item.
It can, because it's your agenda item is to discuss the work schedule, so you can add that into the work schedule.
Okay, that's fine then. Thank you very much.
Any more comments, any proposals?
I would suggest having the budget of 2,000, just in case.
Okay, do we have a second of that? Yeah. All those agree? Thank you. Okay, item 95, PR&IT Committee to elect interested members to the committee. Do we have anybody interested in joining PR&IT? We have Rick and Clyde, so we'll start with Clyde. Do we have a proposal for Clyde to join PR&IT? Rachel, seconder? Yeah, Tim? All those in favour? Okay, and then we have Rick. Do we have a proposal for Rick to join PR&IT? Steve? Rachel? All those in favour? Yep, thank you.
Registrings, Mum.
Okay, Tim's registering is very fast. Item A, to receive the report from the chair of the committee. So in the absence of the chair, I will just read out his report. So, the calendars have been printed and it was agreed that they should go on sale for £4 each. Councillor Howden to deliver one to each of the local businesses that sponsored in its production. Prize giving and photos are being arranged and they have now been done. We've handed out the prizes to those who came first, second and third. And we have been selling the calendars in Tesco today and we took over £100, so that was very successful. And we're back there on Thursday from 12 till 2. It was agreed to defer the discussions regarding the purchase of camera for recording council meetings to the next committee meeting. It was agreed to publish an events calendar for next year and to a resume of our events staged in 2022. It was agreed that the next open forum will commence at, I think that's been changed, is it not? 6:45 and room for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
That was based on the previous PR&IT meeting. Etc. etc. The deputy clerk is to contact the drainage board for maps of Boston Road South. It was agreed to recommend our proposed budget for 2023-24 to the finance committee. The next meeting is 3 p.m. on 28th November at King Road Chambers. That's the report. So item B is to resolve to agree to recommend to the committee to amend standing order 3E and 3F. Now, we did have a brief discussion about this before last month's meeting. So, what we're proposing to do is to amend the standing orders. Now, we actually instate standing orders after the open forum and the reports. So, the open forum has actually always been preceding the meeting, i.e. when standing orders are instated. So what we're proposing is we've been correcting the agenda and standing orders to reflect how we actually conduct a meeting, i.e. the open forum is preceding the meeting and standing orders shouldn't be referring to an open forum because standing orders refer to the actual part of the meeting rather than the bit preceding. So Mabel thought Sutton on Sea Town Council is one which a lot of clerks are signposted to in Lincolnshire for best practice, and they actually have an open forum before the meeting, and they don't mention that in standing orders. They do have a separate policy for public participation, and they don't minute their open forum. So we obviously have been looking at other examples of best practice in order to see how we should be amending our agenda. So obviously I know that people do have feelings about the open forum in general, but that's not relevant to this agenda item. However, I have requested an agenda item for PR and IT to look to amend our community engagement and communications policy to take inspiration from Mabel Thorpe's public participations at meetings policy to detail a bit further about the open forum as it will be removed from standing orders. That will be a recommendation to full council, so it will come back to full council next month. So that will give everybody an opportunity to discuss what they want to discuss on the open forum. But regarding this agenda item, that doesn't include open forums, yes, Tim.
So in that case, we will be having the 10 minutes on camera for the public to come and do their thing, as usual, until this is changed. I've got no problem that there was a 25-minute open forum before the meeting, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But these 10 minutes are absolutely vital to the good running of this
So
council.
the point is the
In
10
terms of
minutes,
transparency.
the 10 minutes is before the meeting. What PR and IT have been recommended to do is amending the open forum process to encourage public engagement as much as possible.
We all agree with that.
They will come up with a recommendation in order to amend the policy to reflect what we've agreed to do.
We all agree
That
with
will
what
be-
you're saying, Madam Chair.
That will come back to full council at next meeting.
Yeah, we all
for
agree with
discussion.
the 25 minutes, etc.
Yeah,
That's
but
the 10 minutes at the beginning of the meeting
yeah,
that deals with public concerns that need to be minuted. Because after all, if people got a concern, it has to be minuted by the council for action.
yeah, but Tim, that's not part of this agenda item.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I'm just
so
making
we
aware
can
this is an
discuss
issue.
that at next meeting, but
Yes.
that's not part of this agenda item. Rick, yes.
Probably the wrong time to do it, it's not part of the meeting, but can I just say that historically the 10 minutes prior to the meeting haven't been recorded by us anyway. Camera only goes on at 10 minutes first, normally.
No, it doesn't
No,
count. Goes on
it's
to
not
the-
husband, yeah.
Okay, I apologise.
So,
Thank you.
in reference to the standing orders, it's basically amending it so it reflects how we actually conduct the meeting, i.e. the open forum is preceding the meeting, and therefore public participation is by inviting from the chair. Mark?
Yeah, so just to make it really crystal clear, in relation to 3E, our standing orders currently state that members of the public may make representations, answer questions and give evidence at a meeting which they are entitled to attend in respect of the business on the agenda. So up until this point, any member of the public could speak at any point during our standing orders through the agenda. That's what that states, unless, because the thing in there trying to add, which is subject to being invited to by the chair, I believe should be on there, because everything needs to go through the chair of the council. I get that. However, it's been not made, people haven't been made to think that they can't speak once that open forum finishes. But what that standing order to me states is that members of the public can make comments during the course of our agenda at any point, provided they've got permission by the chair.
Do you want to just explain,
So
because it's in
in
reference to...
3D, meetings shall be, so in law, the only thing we have to do is allow members of the public and the press to attend our meetings. We do not, in law, have to allow anyone to speak. Lots of councils allow members or parishioners to make representations and ask questions relating to the agenda. That's how it's always been, and that's always been in that 10 minutes. That's how it's done. You shouldn't, in best practice, you should not invite members of the public to speak on agenda items once standing orders are instated.
And I believe the point you're referring to, it then goes on point F, and it says the period of time designated for public participation at meeting in accordance with Standing Order 3E, so it refers back to the Standing Order, shall not exceed 10 minutes unless directed by the chairman of the meeting. So we were just proposing not exceed 0 minutes unless directed by the chairman of the meeting, so i.e. if they're invited to speak, or unless it's placed on the agenda, which does then allow us to place it on the agenda if we so wish to. But it's not requiring us to have a 10-minute open forum because that's never actually been part of the meeting and therefore shouldn't be in standing orders. Tim?
This is the back part of the problem, isn't it? It's whether it can go on the agenda if you wish it to. And we're in a situation where the city council 9 items he put for the agenda, he's had 8 of them thrown out. That's the problem. I can't get anything on the agenda. My colleague can't get the agenda. The agenda is set by a certain few people,
Yeah,
and that's the problem with this whole council.
Tim, the open forum section is separate to the meeting. That's what we're trying to.
We've got no problem with that separate
Yeah,
forum.
so-
What we're talking about is the participation in our meeting,
No,
which is absolutely vital for our democracy and our transparency.
Yeah, so Tim, the 10-minute open forum, which has always been...
And it's always been filmed.
Yes, no, it hasn't always been filmed. It's only started being filmed when I actually proposed that the meetings were filmed.
Thank you. That's our standard practice. We film the 10 minutes.
Yes, but
Excellent,
no,
that's fine.
the-
That's all I want to know.
Tim, the 10-minute open forum is and has always been preceding the meeting. What we're doing is we're amending standing orders and the agenda to reflect that. So when we're discussing the amendments to standing orders, the 10-minute open forum is not relevant to the standing orders because it's preceding the meetings.
So how do you have a 0 minute?
But it's precede.
How do you have a 0 minute? What is a 0 minute? I've got no idea what a 0
Can't listen
minute
to
is.
this agenda item.
Right, okay, so the agenda item is to resolve to agree. The open forum is not relevant to the agenda item because standing orders are instated post that. Do we have a proposer and seconder for the agenda item? Rick. Seconder? Is it that? All those in favour? Thank you.
Can I?
Before we get this,
Yes, Rachel.
Because obviously, going around circles. The recording of the open 10 minutes beforehand, it's never been minuted anyway, has it?
It has previously been minuted, but it doesn't have to be.
It
But
doesn't
again,
have to.
could we discuss that at the next meeting when
Yeah.
I
I'm
bring the
just trying to get
agenda
things
item?
ahead.
Because
I can't
obviously
remember any minutes
we've
of
got a lot to discuss around the
Yeah.
open forums. It needs to be an agenda item for the next meeting. Yes, Mark.
Just for clarity in relation to that one, because I think it is important in relation to part of the reason why I left the last meeting, and that is up until this point, in the whole time that I've been on the council, there has always been a 10-minute open forum before every single full council meeting, which has been recorded and minuted. The HBC forum, which I was initially on PRIT when it was set up, was to develop better links with the community, because our communication with the community, as well as other organisations, isn't the best. And it was developed for that particular reason, and I'm really pleased that it is engaging with more parishioners. But I do, sort of like, again, come back to the main reason why I left the meeting last week, was the fact that at that point, there wasn't a discussion around any of it. It was reduced to 1 minute. The 1 minute was recorded, but the 25 minutes pre the meeting wasn't recorded and wasn't minuted. So again, it may be another agenda item, but I want to register at this point my serious concern over the fact that any time that a member of the public comes to speak to the council, if it is not minuted and it's not recorded, the concern is that when they then come back in X amount of months' time, like the gentleman did last week, he came back for the second time to discuss the allotments, that's not minuted anywhere. And all we've got as a council to go back to that person is go, we'll look back in our minutes. Oh, sorry, there wasn't any. So that is all I want to make clear.
Okay, so we'll be discussing that at the next meeting. We can all move on.
Yeah, I just want to make
One more point.
One point only. Can anybody else around this table name one other parish council that actually records any of their meetings?
give us time, we'll find one.
Okay. Locally, I mean, not in the
No,
midst
no,
of...
no, you asked the question. You asked the question, I'll give you the answers.
Can we please move on with the agenda? Thank you. So, agenda item...
Sorry, Chair. Just one last thing. If we don't, I can guarantee I won't be chucking my toys out the pram, as I was suggested last meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Can we please move on? So, agenda item B is done. Agenda item 96, Events Committee, again, to elect interested members to the committee. Do we have anybody who wishes to join the Events Committee? No? Oh, yes, the hand going up. Right, Clive would like to join the Events Committee. Do we have a proposer and a seconder, please? Yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. Tim and Rachel. Yeah. So agenda item A, to receive report from the chair of the committee.
Okay, at our last meeting we finalised the details for the Remembrance Parade, which took place on Sunday the 13th of November. The Christmas, oh no, well, as part of that I've got more in there, but I don't need to go through all that because it's happened now. We'd just like to thank the RBL and All Saints Church for working with us to organise this act of remembrance. The Christmas fair will take place on the 3rd of December from 12 noon. The High Street will be closed during the event from Barrington Gate to the traffic lights. There will be a mixture of food, craft and charity stalls on the High Street and the churchyard, along with a snow globe and a rodeo reindeer to keep people entertained. All Saints Church are organising a Christmas tree festival on the same day, and we hope to decorate the trees in the churchyard with handmade decorations. If any groups or individuals wish to make any decorations, they can drop them into the parish offices by the 1st of December. Santa will be there on the day at Jamie's Carpets, giving out presents to the children. There will also be an Advent duck trail around the town for children to find clues, and they can then collect a treat from our stall. We will also be selling the Hollish calendar at the event. At 4 p.m. we will gather at the junction of Barrington Gate, ready for the lantern parade. You can make your own lantern and bring it along, and we will supply you with a battery tea light, or you can purchase a lantern from our stall on the day. Ideas of how to make a lantern will be on our Facebook page. The parade will go through the High Street to the Christmas tree in the churchyard, where carols will be led by All Saints Choir. We'll also be announcing the winner of the best window competition on the day, so there'll be lots going on for everybody throughout the day. If anyone is free for a couple of hours or an hour during the event, please can they let myself or the clerk know so that we can put them onto the rota. And then we also discussed ideas to celebrate the coronation next year, and we will be putting together ideas in detail at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 97, Finance Committee A, to receive report from the chair of the committee.
Okay, budgets for this financial year were reviewed. We still need to remain cautious due to the continued uncertainty in the energy market. Next year's draft budget has been reviewed. As I say, it's only draft, and we will be in position to submit a final budget for the December meeting of the full council. The clerk and I are arranging a meeting with our council's investment advisors. In this time of uncertainty, we need to ensure our capital investment is totally secure. That's it.
Thank you. So agenda item B is to discuss and resolve to agree the recommendation of the committee, the budget review for 2022-23. So that is reviewing this current year's budget.
Yeah. So we went through actually what we've got left to spend this year. I've asked the clerk to inform me of any committees that want to spend money, just to give me an update please, just so we can keep an eye on it day by day. We're looking reasonably okay, it's not too bad, apart from the fuel cost obviously, and the cost of the energy increases, which are quite worrying, especially when renters in Cougar Chambers are running a halogen heater 8 hours a day when they're in, because they eat up the electricity. That's it, I think.
That's it. Okay, agenda item C, the payments for October 22 of £40,338.90.
So, Madam Chair, part B was to discuss and resolve to agree.
Oh, sorry, apologies. So to agree the recommendations of the committee, the budget review for 2022-23, what is your proposal, Rick?
I propose we accept the current position to keep monitoring it.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a seconder for that? Rachel, all those agreed? Thank you. Right, item C, the payments for October 2022 of £40,338.90, as John's already explained, that includes 2 invoices that haven't yet been agreed, were paid following the procedure of procedure set out in minute number 2021-2-195C, and to note the income of October 2022 of £11,749.25. So, agenda item D, to note the bank balances as set out on the 31st of October 2022 as account ending 4844, £3,022.50. Accounts ending 5394, £10,192.80, and account ending 01PC, £222,884.33. Agenda item E is to review the draft committee budgets for 2023-24 as recommended by the Finance Committee.
So,
the agenda pack that everybody's received, we've got all the budgets. The bits highlighted in red are the closed session, just before we start.
so admin, we're looking at a budget including projects for next year of £32,310. Without projects, it'll be £26,310.
Sorry, it's like, come on.
Before you jump on to the next section, if I don't do it in sections in my head, I'm lost.
Sorry?
We've got without projects, but why isn't the elections in that? Because we'll have an election anyway.
Because we've got money in the earmark reserve already for it.
So, because obviously you've earmarked it like bank interest and that kind of, and then into the blue, but you haven't done the same with the elections.
Well, the 6,000 that are in the column marked EMR
Yeah,
is what we've saved up over the last couple of years
yeah,
to finance an election if we need to.
yeah. So you didn't need to put anything. I'm just wondering why there was a gap. I don't like gaps.
Yeah, so the elections in next year's budget and the contingency reserves has been classed as a project, so it's not needed.
Yeah.
So you've got the option of including it or not including it.
Fabulous, thank you.
But we need to keep the sum in there all the time, just in case.
Okay, yes.
So, I'll give you the council tax costs at the end of this report. If I may. So, open spaces, which is the big one. We've had to increase as part to cover the cost of maintenance for the tennis courts. So their budget now comes out at to
And there's the amendments for the grass cutting, because there's all a lot less
Okay.
already.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So the grass cuttings for the budgets has changed. So Hallgate Cemetery, we're now looking at £2,640. It's quite a late changes, so I wasn't really aware of it. Netherfield, 1875. Old Beach St John, 2040. Old Beach Herne, 1350. Old Beach St Mark's, 2040. Old Beach Bank, is that figure correct? Because I've got a T against it. 2250.
Yeah, it is, sorry.
That's all right. So,
So for the grass cutting, they're not actually increased from the previous year,
No.
so there won't be any additional cost. Yes, Mark?
In relation to the tender, I do believe the tender was lower than the previous cutting year, which is why I did request the tender but couldn't have it. So I just wanted to make sure that the tender that came through, all tender costs that came through were reduced from this current year. So we can't say that it's going to be the same as this current year because it wasn't.
So what, for the budgeting,
Yes,
for the budgeting, we base it on 30 cuts, but we don't normally cut 30 times, but we obviously have to budget a figure. So it's the figure that was provided per cut times 30 cuts, which Rick has over there, which
12195.
Karen did earlier.
12,195.
Yeah.
If you cut the 30 cuts.
And that's based on the tender that has been appointed as per the agreement and Jan's Clark's report.
Okay.
So the total budget for open spaces is 69,072 with projects, without projects 47,572. Moving on, PPDES. The budget we're looking at 9,000 with projects. We've got a bit many projects anyway, so let's take it 7.5.
The chapel.
The chapels we were looking at a rough guesstimate of 50,000, but a glazier who specialises in stained glass windows has come in a damn sight cheaper than that to do both. So we're proposing that we do the South Chapel next year. Well, that's a surprise, it is well, isn't it? South Chapel next year and the North Chapel the following year.
So that figure will be asked to be reduced by half.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that figure was placed in at approximate £50,000, but it's now been reduced to 25,000, which would include the full renovation of that chapel, based on the quotation we received from a company who specialises in windows for churches, etc.
Yeah. So the total budget then will be 25 off that. 31,000 with projects, without projects 6,200. PR and IT. We're looking at CCTV next year for 3,500. That'll be in the cemetery, Park Cemetery. Email and software licenses 3,500. IT equipment 1,000 if we need anything. Phone and broadband 600. And the calendar, if we carry on selling at the rate we sold today, it should be a successful event. So the total budget with projects is 9,100, without is 5,100. Moving down to the events committee, and we're asking for £8,000 next year to cover projects. Obviously there wasn't any projects, it would be zero. So that gives us total with projects of 305,801 and without projects 226,301. We've done a rough calculation for later on a boundary property for the full £305,000 budget. Works out just like less than 50 pence per week. That's not an increase, that's what it is, 50p. Without projects, it brings it down to about 30 pence, I believe, for a type D.
So obviously we've gone through them fairly swiftly,
Yeah.
appreciate that. The more in-depth discussions about the budgeting happens in the committee meetings. Does anybody have any questions or anything they would like to raise on this? Yes, Mark?
I think in relation to the figures, because the figure I saw on the last set of paperwork was £70 currently for this Bandy property for this current year. Is that correct, precept?
Rings a bell.
Okay. I believe the last point that the date that we was given at the last meeting was £93 for a month if we have projects and £73 a month.
They work on weekly ones, I haven't done many calculations on it.
Okay.
You've got
Jan's on.
Okay.
So, without projects, the total cost to anybody with a Band D property in Holbeach of the parish council is £73.11 per annum. If you go with the budget with projects, and this was before
The amendments.
The changes,
we had made the amendments, it would be an increase on a Band D property per year of £25.81. So that's an extra £25.81 a year to deliver 90,000.
But bearing in mind, just with the amendments we made already, we've reduced it by approximately
Yeah, this is
30,000
only
from that figure, so that will affect things
This
significantly.
is only draft, remember?
Yeah, and I've worked it out for Band B, so from Band A down to Band D.
So I suppose we've already amended some things to reduce the amounts. Do we wish each committee to go back again for their final drafts and to reduce that further? Is that what we're wishing to do?
I'd like to propose that we go back to them and review the budget
Yeah,
on the next meeting if possible.
Mark?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's just a review. It's Mark. sorry.
Yeah, in relation to open spaces, we definitely need to go back and relook at that because we were looking at bringing Grasscote back in-house, which we're now not. So we won't have the fuel expense that we've currently put down. We won't have the maintenance that we've currently put down because we were looking to bring that back in-house.
Okay, so that's positive, that means you're all
I would imagine it would probably be only open spaces and properties that would change, I would imagine.
Yeah, Jen?
sorry, the fuel costs that are in already were based on the fact, as was this year, so it was based on the fact that the grass cutting is contracted out, because that's how it's always been in the past. So we don't need to make amendments to the fuel costs, because they rely on what we've done in the last, well, since I've been here. Yeah.
Tim?
Talk about potentially bumping up the contribution of the parishioners by about 25% at least. And in this situation we are now, this current climate we're in, does this committee feel it's fair to increase the charges to our parishioners by 25%?
So I think we don't work in percentages.
I'm just taking 93 from 70, about 25 right now.
Yeah, so we don't work in percentages just on the basis that because the tax base, i.e. the number of electors we have, not electors, council taxpayers, sorry, changes because the population is increasing, then we work on a cost for a Band D property. So that's the real cost to the public rather than a percentage increase overall. Because obviously if your number of council taxpayers goes up, you may well increase your precept, but the amount each individual pays wouldn't be the same as the precept increase, if that makes sense.
Just so you know, we don't get the numbers for the precept until January anyway.
Yeah, so obviously these are drafts, the tax-based figures should be going up this year, which will obviously adjust our calculations. Based on the figures that we've got now, we've already reduced it by approximately 30 grand anyway, just with the amendments we made. It will go back to all of the committees to review again, ready for coming back to December with pretty much the final budgets. Obviously, like you say, we have got to consider the increases, so that's why we start putting it together to see where it's looking out coming, but it's not by no means a final budget yet. It's just work in progress and draft at the moment. Mark?
Just again for clarity on the fuel aspect, the last 2 to 3 years I believe the fuel cost has been £500 per year of what we put in. We put in £5,000, so that £5,000 is a 10% increase, just for clarity.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yes, so yeah, like you say, it has been increased significantly.
Thank you.
Because that's based on how much of the costings we've been using this current year because of the fuel price increases, etc.
Just one quick thing on fuel. A lot of people might not know, but the government sneaked in the other day on their budget. There will be a 23p per litre increase next year to go towards the tax element on a litre of fuel.
Okay. Does anybody have any more comments, or are we happy for that to go back to the committees and then work on them in a bit more detail? Yeah. Thank you, So, item F, to discuss and resolve to agree the additional spend on the cemetery chapels and from which budget this will come from. So I believe this is the two invoices that we've been sent.
Yeah. So they've asked us for the preliminary invoice 10,100, which we don't really want to pay, to be absolutely honest. And the other one, we don't want to pay the last 3 invoices, which come to £600, £621 roughly. But obviously we have still got additional scaffolding charges that we weren't aware of originally, which is going to come in at about £1,600, £1,600 to £1,700. Obviously we haven't got the budget for it, so where's the budget going to come from?
So in those 2 invoices we've got additional scaffolding charges that we've agreed to pay for when they couldn't work due to the bats. We've then got 3 weeks that they've included in October where they could work but they chose not to. So I believe that's the one that we're recommending not to pay that part of it.
It is.
And then we've got an interim payment
10,100.
yeah, of 10,100, which we asked for a breakdown for because it is just a figure. It doesn't detail any work completed. They haven't provided a breakdown ready for our meeting, although they were given the date, and they are very near to completion anyway. So it would make sense to pay them in full in a few weeks' time once they've completed the work.
You've got to be careful, like, not paying them, just in case they're down tools again. When they're almost there, Is it worth just paying them so they continue to get it done?
The problem with an interim payment, if we're not clear what that work is actually including, as a council, we can't just pay out money willy-nilly if we don't know what that's including. Obviously, we know the overall price of the work included, but we don't know at what stage that brings them up to. So, yes, Rachel.
Obviously, on the last few invoices we've had from this company, we found things we've questioned. So it would be wise to have this breakdown so we can question, because something that's popped up every time.
That
So we
is,
need that breakdown.
yeah,
Definitely.
that's what we explained to them when they sent it in. We said we would need a breakdown because all that's going to happen is we ask for a breakdown. So they haven't provided one as of yet.
Is it fully watertight?
Sorry?
Is it fully watertight now?
It's felted and battened on all elevations. 1.5 elevations is tiled, so they've got 1.5 approximately to go.
But they would make it watertight at the minute because obviously they're working in there, they know time of year.
But obviously if we're not able to agree the interim payment this meeting, it will be going to our December meeting, at which point they'll be either finished or extremely near finished anyway. So the timescales of agreeing the payments. Yes, Mark.
I think at the very least we need to communicate with them that if we're not going to agree the interim payment, the reasoning because they haven't got us a breakdown.
Yeah.
And I think we need to put provision in place should they then send the breakdown through and it is acceptable that we can then pay that before the next meeting. Again, it's just in relation to if we've already agreed to pay an interim payment in the course of the works and then they put it forward and we don't pay it. I agree with Councillor Lewis in the sense of, we don't want to get to a point where they walk us up.
We haven't actually agreed to pay any interim payments. That's not been detailed down.
Yep.
And obviously the problem would be in that is, I'm assuming the whole council would want to be reviewing the breakdown to make sure that it does meet our requirements before agreeing such a large payment, which we did explain this whole procedure to them. Obviously they're well versed in our procedures by now, and we gave them the date of the meeting, which actually we're a week on from where it should have been, so they've had plenty of time to provide that. Rick?
I just realised we missed item 2.
Not got there yet.
Okay.
No, we're on that. Yes, Mark.
So I'll propose that we don't pay it then.
So, are we happy to pay the invoice?
So we haven't got the one for the baptismal hasn't come in.
Yeah.
The one for 2,282 is the one that's disputed because there's 3 weeks of scaffolding that we don't want to pay. The back report we've paid, is the August and September scaffolding bills have been paid because they've previously been agreed by council. So it's just, the agenda item is the 10,000 and the 3 weeks.
The 3 weeks.
And to agree that spend, which would be 3,200
So
roughly.
not the whole invoice of the scaffolding, just those 3 weeks?
Just those 3 weeks we're querying,
Okay.
but then to find where the overspend would be 3,200 if you took out the 3 weeks.
Okay, so we're proposing not to pay for those 3 weeks where they could have been on site and the interim payment because we have not received a breakdown as requested. So we have a proposal and second for that. All agreed. Okay, and then in terms of where is the budget coming from? Rick?
Definitely not got any money. I put £10,000 away last year, didn't I, as a contingency, so I would suggest we release some of that to cover this.
So it will be an overspend of, is that excluding those 2 invoices?
There's all those,
Yeah.
but now you're deducting that 600 off for the 3 weeks where you're disputing, so it depends
So
how
how much
much
is that?
there's about 3,200.
Approximately 3,200 overspend on the project because of the extra scaffolding costs that we've agreed. So we're proposing that it comes from the contingency, which was £10,000. Proposing a second look. All those in favour? Okay. Agenda item G, to resolve to agree the telephone contract for the office. So we've discussed previous options previously. We have been looking into different prices, etc. We have found that the cheapest price that we can find at the moment is Sky. However, we can't get out of our BT contract until July. So we've got the costings on the drive, which we would be saving a significant amount of money. However, I would just like to point out that Sky actually increased their prices over their Black Friday, so it's not as cheap as their price was in August. I personally, therefore, would be proposing that we wait a bit longer to switch over, because we would have to be paying a cancellation fee for BT to come out of the contract. And Sky's prices are likely to drop back down again when they don't actually have a sale on, which is strange. And then we look to change the provider closer to the time. Yes, Tim?
There are a number of companies that will actually buy you out of contract in order to get the business, so it's a feasible way of approaching it. I would suggest we hang around for a moment, because there's going to be an awful lot of competition in this market in the very near future.
Yeah.
So stick around and wait for this market.
Just on the point of contracts, do we have a complete list of when those contracts, kind of one view of where all of our contracts terminate? Because it might be beneficial to just review those to try and turn some of those contracts in order to get better deals. Just might be good.
That's a good idea. I think that's something that can be agenda for PR and IT to put together. I think so, yeah, I think it's volunteer stuff. Okay, so we're proposing to bring that back to another meeting and look into that. Oh, sorry, Mark.
Sorry, just one quick point is, should that then have come under PR and IT instead of Finance Committee? If it's a PR and IT thing?
It's hard, isn't it? Because some people look at it as admin and office costs. So
currently it's in the admin budget for this year, and then we're looking at moving it over to PR and IT budget next year. So there's an overlap really.
Yeah.
So in that case, then I defer that it's put back to PR and IT come our new financial year and looked at that.
In April?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, by all means, we can be reviewing all the contracts before then.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll look to discuss that in PR and IT. Okay. Do you need to agree? Agree to defer it? Or not to agree?
Review contracts in PR and IT and put to PR and IT.
Okay, so we're agreeing
Next
to...
financial year.
Okay, we're agreeing to review the contracts in PR and IT. Yes.
And the thing.
Yeah. Seconder? All in favour? Thank you. Okay, agenda item 98, confirmation of date and venue of the next parish council meeting. The next meeting of the parish council will be on the 12th of December 2022 at the Methodist Church, Albert Hall, Holbeach. And then finally, to resolve to agree to exclude the press and public under the Public Bodies Admissions to Meeting Act 1960 to the confidential nature of the business to be transacted. Do you have a proposal and second? All agreed? Okay, thank you. I'll close the meeting at 20:33.